Hello and welcome to Rooted. I am your host, Natalie Andrea, and I want to welcome you to this space, to this first episode. If you know me and you are not new to my work, you know that this has been a long time in the making. It has been requested, and beyond that, it has been so deep within my heart to actually share in bigger ways, to share my voice, to share my expression, and to create bigger impact, but also just to have the space to flow, to have conversations that go to the depths. And I'm so excited to be here. And I want to say that I'm also here with many other feels. As much as I'm excited to connect with you and to share more about my journey and where I'm at and these beautiful clients that I'm working with and these insights that I have to share and to have these beautiful, transformational, heart-centered, deep conversations, there are these parts of me that I have become intimately aware of that are very much in deep, deep resistance to this new edge for me. There are these fears that have emerged. There have been these distractions that have been coming up left, right, and center. And they really are just such physical representations of that deep resistance that I do feel. And I am here and committed to showing up anyway with it all. And so if you're here, I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this journey with me. My intention for this space, for Rooted, is to root deeper into our truth, into the truth of who we are, beyond the conditions, beyond all the ways that we learned that we needed to be or needed to show up, and to root deeper into our humanness, our divinity at the same time, and to really look to our roots, like our earlier life experiences that have shaped us, our shadows, the deep patterns, the energetics. That's the stuff that really lights me up, because that is what has made us who we are today. It doesn't define us. It's not who we really are, but sometimes it's what we identify with or who we think we are. And so it's to have these deep conversations that descend into these deep roots. And if you think about the roots of a tree, like they go down, they descend below the surface and into the depths, into the darkness. And it's not light down there. And yet it's really necessary because it's where life is sourced from. And so it's really descending into those roots and allowing it all to be here. The full spectrum of light, of the depths, of the dark, the full spectrum of experience, of emotion, it's all welcome. And my intention with this space is also to show up as authentic and unedited and really as imperfectly as possible, because that's medicine for me and for the parts of me that have felt like I needed to be perfect, that want this podcast to be this perfect creation so that I can protect it from any pain of judgment or misunderstanding, or however it might be received by you in a way that's not necessarily how I want it to be received by you. That part of me wants it to be received by you. because I know that we perceive through each of our own lenses. And really, that often has nothing to do with the person in front of us. And so if there's judgment, if there's, oh, that's not for me, if you don't understand, if something I say doesn't jive with you or it doesn't resonate, like that's okay. I want to bring that into this space. That is okay. It's okay with me. And it's okay for you to have your own relationship to whatever it is I share, because we know we can't control anyone's perceptions anyways. And so I come into this with that in the background. And I know a lot of the women that I work with are overcoming patterns of repression, suppression of self, similar to myself, or feeling like they need to be perfect or that they're not good enough, and carry these deep wounds of repressing or rejecting certain parts of themselves. And I'm not immune to those patterns. In fact, what brings me into this space, into this journey, is my own experience with autoimmune disease. That is what sparked this whole journey for me. And I'm not going to go into what that looked like for me specifically in this episode. That's going to be in one of the coming episodes. But what I do want to bring into this episode is that when I took the journey of actually uncovering what was beneath the surface, which, by the way, took many severe flares. I had many severe flares of dis-ease that were debilitating, that were severe, that were scary, most of which left me unscathed. Like, I continued on in life doing the things that I was doing, and I may have dabbled in naturopathic medicine, in some supplements, in changing up my diet to better support my body. But that was kind of the extent that I went to in terms of actually addressing or meeting anything deeper. And it wasn't until I had a flare about 5 years ago in 2020 that scared me for my life, where the possibility of death came in. The possibility of me no longer being here with my kids, the possibility of me not being able to take care of my kids. When that flare happened, it shook me to my core. And it lit this fire within me to do anything and everything that I could do within my power to heal myself, to heal my body, and to finally look outside the box. Even though I didn't know where to look, even though I didn't necessarily have any resources or anyone that I could speak to who had experienced autoimmune disease or disease in general, or who had healed from it, who had reversed or transformed their symptoms, I set the intention to heal. I started asking for healing. Like, it's one of those take you to your knees moments. And I started talking to God, to Source, to the Creator, to the universe, and asking for help, asking for healing, asking for whatever it was I needed to see or do to heal my body. And it wasn't until then where these breadcrumbs started to emerge within my life, within my path, that took me down this journey that I never would have been able to anticipate. But it's what led me here. And it's really what led me into seeing these deeper patterns within myself. I didn't even know what a pattern was. I didn't really have a whole lot of emotional intelligence either. If you rewind 5 years ago, like, I was actually incredibly emotionally attuned I would often pick up on the emotions of others without fully knowing, but I didn't have a whole lot of language around it. And I wasn't actually connected to my body, with my body, within my body, somatically, in a way where I could actually understand or feel into those subtle energetics of emotion. And so I didn't know what any of that was. I didn't even really know what the subconscious was. I had never heard the word shadow from a psyche standpoint. I didn't even know really what energy was, what the chakra system was. I didn't know any of this. But what I was led down was this journey of uncovering all these different layers within myself and within my being, where I had previously thought of myself like as a body, as a human. I had always believed that there was some sort of higher intelligence at play, but I didn't really have a relationship with it. And suddenly I was faced with this event that actually threatened my safety within my body. It threatened my life. And so in opening up the box to look outside and being open to different perceptions, different perspectives, different modalities, even just that opening of what is there that can help me created this beautiful breadcrumb and this beautiful path to everything that I needed to essentially heal. And it's interesting because as somebody who experienced a diagnosis, mine in particular was called Still's disease, adult onset Still's disease, because I actually was diagnosed when I was 18. So I was technically an adult. And it's very similar to rheumatoid arthritis, to lupus. But my tests for those specific diagnostics were negative. And so the working diagnosis was Still's disease. When you receive a diagnosis, you have an autoimmune disease. It often becomes this sentence. You know, I had believed that I had a disease that was incurable, where my body was attacking itself, and that there was no cure, that this was something that I was going to have to live with my entire life. And based on my previous flares, based on what you might read about that diagnosis, that disease, and what it looks like, that became something that I was open to or expected for myself. And so often when we are diagnosed with a condition, it's my rheumatoid arthritis, my lupus, my fibromyalgia, my chronic fatigue, my thyroiditis, whatever it is, my joint pain. It can become this identification with it. It can become part of us, part of our identity. And of course, because we are told that there is no cure, we are told that our body is attacking itself by those that are in authority, we take that on as our belief much of the time. I know I did. I can speak from my own experience. I definitely did. And so what I believed is that I could manage my symptoms by reducing stress, mainly by adjusting my diet, maybe by taking in some supplements. And actually, when I received my diagnosis, I wasn't even really, there was no talk about diet or supplements or anything like that. It was just the medication, really. And so that was my belief. And so each flare that I had, I just continued along doing the best that I could with what I had. And what I had was that there was no other resources for me available. And so within this space, my hope, my intention would be to open your perception to create the possibility, even if it's the tiniest glimmer, like even if it's just the tiniest bit of light peeking in through the blinds, that maybe there's something deeper going on that your body is actually expressing. Maybe you have more power than you think or know to actually address those symptoms at the root. Maybe your body is not broken. Maybe it's not attacking itself. Maybe it's not faulty. Maybe its intelligence is actually trying to get your attention to go inwards, to take a journey into what it is that's not currently working for you within your life. My experience with pain, with symptoms, with dis-ease is that oftentimes it's our body trying to get our attention around some way that we are operating that is not congruent with our truth. Some way that we are being, whether it's a belief, a pattern, an action, a dynamic within ourselves, is actually deviating from our truth or from higher truth. And so oftentimes we aren't listening to the more subtle invitations present. You know, like we are, especially, I work primarily with moms, right? And so we have all of these roles, we have all of these responsibilities. There's all of these shoulds within our daily lives, within our days, our weeks, our months. You know, I should get to the gym. I should listen to this podcast. I should make dinner. I should take my kids to 6 different activities this week. I should be having play dates. Should. I should be showing up for my friends. Whatever it is, there's a lot of outward energy. Our energy is taken outwards a lot of the time. There are many distractions around us within our human lives. And so there's not a lot of energy inwards a lot of the time. It's a struggle in motherhood. It is not easy to balance your needs with your family's needs, with your kids' needs, with your partner's needs, with your work. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy at all. But because there are so many other facets of our lives, our attention is often pulled outwards on all the things that we need to do or be for others. And so instead of listening to that little voice or call within us that's like, I'm feeling tired, or I'm starting to feel burnt out, you know, like I probably shouldn't be going to this plan that I made. I should probably be staying at home and resting or taking some space for me. But because I don't want to disappoint that person, I should go. I'm just going to go. And maybe if that happens once or twice, that's not going to be a huge deal. But it's often that repeated pattern of putting your own needs, your own feelings aside perpetually, that necessitates that call to come inwards, to rest, to tend to your needs, to tune into what it is that you are feeling, that what's presenting within you. It needs to get louder and louder and louder for us to listen, for us to hear it among all of the noise, all the pulls on our attention. And I know that was the case for me specifically. It finally, when things got so loud within my body to the point that I couldn't do all of those things. I couldn't care for my kids. I couldn't show up for my partner. I couldn't work. I couldn't do anything really except for lay down in a bed on the couch. I had no energy. I needed people to care for me. So I couldn't show up for all the people that I was so used to showing up for. Finally, I needed other people to show up for me, and I needed to stop and be still. And it's funny for me that the very dis-ease that I was diagnosed with is called Still's disease. By the way, you will probably hear me refer to dis-ease. What I'm referring to is dis-ease, like a lack of ease within the energy systems, within our body, within our being. And I say this differently for a reason. Because disease implies that it's this disease, like there is something wrong, there is something overtaking you. Whereas I more so see it as this dis-ease within your being, and that sacred pattern interrupt, that call to go inwards and actually look to the roots of what is causing that dis-ease within your body, within your being. And so my naturopath once said to me, this really stuck. She said, we are constantly juggling all of these balls within our lives as mothers, as women, as fathers, as men, anybody. And we're juggling all the balls of our health. We are juggling our interests. We are juggling our work. We are juggling our friends, our partner, our children. All of these balls we are juggling. And it is a juggle, because when we shift our attention and energy to one of them, it inevitably takes our energy away from another. And what my naturopath said to me is the only one of those balls that is glass is your health. So when you drop that ball, it has the potential of cracking, of smashing. It's going to require some fixing. It's going to require your attention. All those other balls can bounce back. But if you drop that health ball, you are not going to be able to juggle the ball of your work, because you might not be able to work. You might not even be able to juggle the ball of your kids and their needs. You might not even be able to take care of them. Same with your partner, same with your interests, whatever it might be. And yet so often, so many of us neglect that ball in an effort to show up and catch all of the other balls. A lot of the time when I have women enter my sphere, enter my world, they are women who are pretty dialed in on that health front when it comes to their physical body. What I mean by that is they're often pretty dialed in with their diet. They're usually eating pretty clean. Some of them probably tried juicing or cleansing. Some of them are probably taking turmeric or some sort of supplement that helps with inflammation, probiotics, often aware of their gut health. They're pretty dialed in when it comes to our physical biology and actually supporting the physicality of our bodies. They may not be getting enough sleep because they're moms, but when it comes to like nutrition and that sort of thing, they're often pretty aware. What I would offer and what I have found within myself is that health ball, it's not only our physicality, our health, our being, what makes us us, aside from just having this body, is our emotions. It's our emotional health. It's our heart. It's also our thoughts, the mental plane, our beliefs, our mind. And it's our spirit. It's our soul. And for me, it wasn't until I actually addressed all those different layers within within myself, the multifaceted layers of my being, of these beings that we are, that I was finally able to really make a difference in how I was feeling. And not only just physically, like, yes, I started to feel so much better in my body and get my strength back. And I started to have symptoms disappear. All of these weird symptoms that I used to have, and these styes in my eye and these sore throats. And, of course, I'll get into the flares and what they looked like in a future episode, but I started to feel better within my physical body. Yes. But what was also so profound to me is that I started to feel infinitely more connected and alive emotionally and energetically. And the past version of myself, 5, 8, 10 years ago, wouldn't have even understood what I was saying when I say that. And so if you were listening and you're like, like I'm experiencing symptoms and I wish I could heal them. I wish I didn't have to live with these symptoms. But I don't really understand exactly what she's talking about with these energetics and all of that. Like, that's okay. I see you. And the other thing I want to mention is like, in this space, like I'm going to be talking about patterns. I'm going to be talking about emotional patterns and thought forms and energetics. And I didn't even know what those were. And, the very patterns that I see within myself now, the patterns of repression, patterns of disconnecting with myself, with my needs, with how I even feel, not even knowing how I feel, what my truth is, repression of my truth, and trying to do, accomplish, achieve, be something just so that I can be enough, just so that I can be worthy of love, so that I can be safe, so that I can feel like I have some sense of control. Those very patterns and the rejection of certain aspects of myself, the parts of me that didn't feel good enough, the parts of me that were opinionated, that were fiery, that had things to say, all these things that I had repressed in myself, I actually was completely unaware of those patterns, to the point where if me 8 years ago was listening to this very podcast, I probably wouldn't have seen those things within myself. I might have seen within myself, well, I don't necessarily really feel that great within my skin always, like I don't always feel good about myself. I judge certain aspects about myself. I know that I work really hard. I know that I show up and do a lot for others, and I take pride in that. But I wouldn't have necessarily considered myself as repressed whatsoever. And that is the very nature of these patterns and their connection to symptoms and expressions from the body. It is that they lie within the subconscious, within the unconscious. We're often unconscious of them. The subconscious is below the level of conscious awareness. It means that we are not consciously aware of them. And that's the pattern. That's the challenge of these patterns and that disconnect is often we don't see them. If we saw them, we probably would start to address them. And we would start to potentially see improvements in how it is that we are feeling. But I just wanted to bring that into this space, is that you may hear me talk about patterns and you may not see them within yourself. That is the very nature of these patterns. And so you might be thinking, okay, well, how do I see them? Then how do I move forward? And for me, my children have been pretty profound catalysts in my healing, and the triggers that have come up for me within motherhood. Because my daughter specifically, she's very open with her emotions. Like she has had very strong, powerful emotions since she was little. Like big tantrums, big expression of emotions, big needs. She needed me so much. And it was triggering AF for me at the time. But of course, I didn't understand why it was triggering for me in the beginning. It was just that, okay, I have this difficult child and this is really challenging, and being a mom is challenging, and that kind of what it was what it was. But the more that I actually started to understand that triggers trigger us for a reason. when we have like a heightened emotional reaction or response to something and it gets to us and we feel like inside, like there's something within us that is being touched on, that is being triggered, that is coming up. And those things are coming up because there is something that is active and alive and that likely hasn't been fully processed within you that carries similar energy, that carries similar feeling. So to give you an example for me, when my daughter was expressing these large, big emotions, like I was always the type that was very put together. Like it was very hard to rattle me. Very, I guess you might look at it as grounded, but really it was sort of dissociated when I look back. And so I often kept my cool. And those big emotions that she was expressing were extremely, like I would have a visceral response in my body to them. Once I started to delve into the roots of why my body was doing that and why I was feeling so triggered by them, I saw that it was because I was so shut down in my emotions and I didn't have my own pathways of expressing emotion. I had learned to shut emotion down, that it was bad, in particular, that certain emotions were bad. And so through the portal of her triggering me, through that contrast, through that discomfort that arose, it created this portal into seeing within myself what was there that I hadn't previously seen. And so my biggest suggestion that I can offer you, if you are in this space where you're like, okay, I'm open to seeing these things that maybe are going on beneath the surface, but how do I see them if I can't see them? Look at the things that trigger you. Look at the things that cause a reaction in you. Start looking at why you behave the ways that you behave or feel the ways that you feel, in particular when something is particularly uncomfortable. When there's conflict in a relationship, when there's conflict or a pattern that you're noticing with your kids that's really bothering you, something that's like, I don't like this, there's probably something in that to unpack for you. And so it's those very patterns in my experience and the deep layers of unprocessed emotional energy, the ways that for me, my body was stuck in this freeze response, in this dissociated response where I was so disconnected from myself, but didn't actually know that I was disconnected from myself and had all of this charged energy going on beneath the surface that was expressing through my body to get my attention. That's the very catalyst that sparked this journey for me. And that brings me here with you in this space called Rooted, to really explore those deeper roots with you. Because what I've found as I've walked this journey, as I've followed that thread of the symptoms, of the pain, of the contrast, of the triggers, it wasn't leading me anywhere out there to anything that I needed, to any new supplement. It wasn't. It was actually leading me inwards to all the parts of myself that I had disowned, that I didn't even know were there. So deeper, deeper, deeper into my truth, into discovering myself and knowing myself. And in processing those deeper layers, really becoming me. And years ago, I thought I was me, but like this me that's emerging is a me that is rooted in so much more truth and connection to my actual essence and what I desire and what I want and what's true for me and how I really feel, rather than what the world has taught me that I needed to be. And so it's just been such a beautiful journey that has allowed me to be here and to be able to teach in the group immersions that I do, to hold space in my one-on-one sessions in the way that I do, and now to be able to share this with those who maybe aren't working directly with me in that capacity. And so if you can take anything from this, whether it's that glimmer of belief that, hey, maybe there is something actually going on beneath the surface within my body that is within my power that I didn't know about, that could actually provide some sort of relief or opening within this pain, these symptoms that I'm experiencing. Maybe there's something more to it. Maybe there's a deeper meaning, a deeper invitation. Maybe it allows you to see a part of yourself in a deeper way, or makes a connection, or just shifts a perception around something. That is my biggest hope and intention with this space. And so what you can expect to hear from me and from this space is solo episodes where I dive into all of these deeper energetics and layers, where I dive into what it looks like healing through motherhood and all of the golden nuggets that are within the journey that is motherhood. Motherhood is its own healing journey. So there's so much there. And I have 2 kids myself. I have a daughter who's 8. I have a son who's 7. They are my most profound teachers. They teach me every single day. They are such pure beacons of light and just like pure love. And of course they fight and they have all these kid dynamics, and it's just wild. It's a wild journey, but it's also so beautiful. And so expect to hear lots around the themes of motherhood and really just exploring those deeper roots as a vehicle to expansion and self-discovery and integration and awakening and this thing we call healing. Expect me to have beautiful humans join me for deep, transformational, heart-centered conversations where we go deeper in and around all of these themes and topics in a way that I believe may support you. Humans that have touched me on my journey, either mentors, colleagues, many of which who have become friends, beautiful souls who just have such profound messages to share. Expect to hear also from clients that I work with, because I am blessed to work with these women who have such beautiful visions for the world, for themselves, that have such profound voices to share and journeys to share. And these women, these clients, they're not even clients, these soul connections that I get to share space with inspire me every time I get to connect with them. So expect to hear from them, expect to hear case studies, and I'm also open to this evolving into whatever it's going to evolve into. So I'm here to express what is relevant and true for me in this moment, in the present, here, as truthfully, authentically, and imperfectly as I can. I'm not going to lie, I hit record already once, and this is the second time I'm recording this intro. It took me probably, I want to say 15 or 20 minutes to fully drop in to my flow. Because as someone who has, really experienced these patterns of repression, like big throat chakra vibes, we'll talk about this again and again, I'm sure. When I think about putting my voice out there and just expressing myself, especially in larger ways, like when I'm in a one-on-one session, when I'm in a group immersion or this contained environment where these humans, these souls have invited me into this space, there is a resonance. It creates this safe container where I just flow and I'm in service. And the reason that this podcast is pushing up against these new edges for me is that I don't know who gets to listen. I don't know who's going to tune in. I don't know if there is a resonance in the way that I'm used to. I don't know if I'm going to trigger this person. By the way, if I do trigger you, please take that as medicine. It's medicine for me as well. And all of this is just my experience. This is my offering of my experience. It doesn't have to be true for you. You're going to have your own lens. You have your own path and journey, and that's okay. But for me, I don't have that same container as I normally do to drop in and to express. And so the fear of judgment, the fear of being misunderstood, these old ancient fears as well of like persecution and all of that, like the fear and resistance I've felt to stepping into this new space and allowing myself to be seen and heard in bigger ways is beyond this space. Like it feels bigger than this space, and it is bigger than this space because it goes through much earlier in my life and maybe even some past lives. But I am committed to showing up anyways. And not only is that medicine for me to show up in this way that is unedited. My goal is not to edit to the best of my ability. My goal is not to edit any of this. I also hope that it serves as permission to these beautiful souls and women that I get to work with who are also working through those similar patterns, who sometimes are scared to even speak in a session around something that is vulnerable to them. Maybe they're disconnected from that thing within them as well. And I say this with such reverence because I still sometimes feel that. I still sometimes feel that. And I think the important thing here is, and always, is showing up even with all of that. And I'm working with a beautiful mentor right now who's just such a beautiful permission slip to me in his expression, in his teaching, and in his work. And so for me to even consider being a similar permission slip in that arena is just something that I'm so grateful for and honored by. And so thank you for being here. Welcome to this space. I'm so excited to take this journey with you. If something in one of these episodes speaks to you, I would love to hear from you. I would love, love, love to hear from you. If you think it'll resonate with somebody that you know, share it with them. And if you would support me in this show, in this journey, if you feel resonant in liking, in following, in subscribing, then I would so much appreciate that as well. Thank you so much for tuning in and for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.